Hi, it's Tammy, NZ Gastric Sleeve. It's been a couple of weeks since you guys have heard from me. As I said in an earlier video, my dad was not well. On the Tuesday, so the day after I made my last video, I ended up heading south as he wasn't in a good state. And I was pretty much down there till Saturday just gone, so almost 2 weeks. Within that time, I was still dieting. I was doing as much exercise as I could. My diet wasn't quite as on par as it is when I'm at home. And I weighed myself yesterday morning, so Monday to Monday, and in those 2 weeks I only lost 600 grams, which is about 1.5 pounds in 2 weeks. So I definitely noticed not being as on point with the food, and so even since coming back I found it a lot harder to get back onto as stringent diet as what I was on before I went away. I was meant to have my last dietitian appointment today, but I had to ring her and reschedule it because I just haven't met the 5 kgs. I'm at 3.8 kg, so I've got about 1.5 to go. 1.2, but the dietitian's weight was slightly different from what I take from the 113, which is my starting weight before starting any of this. Not my highest weight, but my starting weight as far as this pre-op diet is concerned. So I've had to put my dietitian appointment off until the 16th. So I've got another couple of weeks to lose those last couple of kilos. So I really need to get back on track. I went swimming on Monday night and plan to go tomorrow morning. And while I was away for those 2 weeks, I did swim 3 times a week, so I was still able to get my swimming in. There's a pool in every town. So I managed to keep that on track. As far as my dad's concerned, for anyone that is interested, he ended up having a triple bypass last Thursday. He came through the operation fine. He didn't have a stroke underneath, and that was what the worry was about. We had to wait a week for the surgeon to decide whether he was actually going to do the surgery or not. But he had the surgery on the Thursday. He was out of ICU within 24 hours, or just over 24 hours, and he is back on a cardiac ward, and is going to rehab on Friday. So he's progressing well. He's doing well. He had a little bit of a setback on Sunday, but he's doing well. But I do have to say the 2 weeks was such an emotional roller coaster. There was one day, the day after Dad had the surgery. So he'd had the surgery, he went straight into ICU. We saw him about half an hour after, and he was still out to it. And the nurse said, "Come back after dinner." So we came back about 4.5 hours later, and he was kind of drowsy. He was in and out of consciousness, and so we left for the night. Now, while I was down in Dunedin, I'd arranged with my employer to work down there for the last week because I've just run out of leave. I've only been with them a year, and I'd used it all up in the first week. So I managed to talk to them about working from Dunedin. So the next day I had to be going to work, but because I hadn't really kind of seen him and had any indication of how successful the operation was, he wasn't fully awake. The day of the surgery, I went back into ICU the next morning, and it's through a locked door, so you've got to push a buzzer and go and sit down and wait. during the day when we'd visited, it had only been kind of maybe 5-10 minute wait. That next morning I waited and I waited. I went in at 7:30. I waited. It was almost 9 o'clock before I decided that I couldn't wait anymore and I had to go to work. I had to walk to work from there, which was about 10 blocks away. So by that stage I was very, very late for work, and I had completely got myself into such a panic. All I wanted to do was go in and see him and then leave. And I understand that the nursing staff and intensive care are really, really busy, and I appreciate that. But if they'd just given the 30 seconds to let me in the door, I would have been out an hour ago. So I'd worked myself into such a state that I went to work and I did a few bits and pieces, but I was in such a state worrying about my dad that I had to leave at lunchtime because I was so worried about him. I wanted to be there at 2 o'clock when we were going to be allowed back in to see him again. And so I left work at lunchtime, probably about 12:30, and I came and met Mum, and I was really, really hungry because I hadn't eaten breakfast because I'd spent an hour and a half waiting in ICU. And so I hadn't eaten that day, and I was really, really hungry, and I was so depressed and so down that I walked into the supermarket and I bought some stuff and we went back to our room, and I pulled my lunch out of the supermarket bag, and Mum looked at it, and it was a pie, mince pie, and a pre-made kind of trifle. And Mum took one look at it and said, "You're not in a good way, are you?" I said, "Yeah, you can tell by what I'm eating that I'm not feeling the crash hot." So I scoffed the pie down, and I got about a quarter of the way through the trifle, and while it was yummy, I decided I'd had enough, so I gave it to Mum to finish. And that's probably an achievement in itself, that I could start to eat something like that and decide after such a little amount to give it away. So yeah, that's probably an achievement. Because of things like that, there was a couple of times where I'd had takeaways throughout those 2 weeks as well. So most of the time I tried to stay on point, but it just wasn't always possible. And so because of that, I'm quite happy with my 600 grams loss for the 2 weeks. I was actually stressing and very anxious in the last probably 5 or 6 days before I came home about the possibility of a gain. So I was quite happy that there was no gain and it was just a smaller loss. But so I've got 2 weeks to get the last of this weight off, see the dietitian, and then it'll be a matter of getting letters from the dietitian to my doctor, and then from my doctor to the surgeon, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, by the end of October, start of November, I'll be able to see the surgeon and see what they say about a date. Delaying out the dietitian may mean that it may be next year. I hope not. Even if it's the week before Christmas, I'd still do it. Mainly because I don't want to wait anymore. I'm focused into what I need to do to have this operation, to start living my life, and that's certainly the way I feel. I have found that I've noticed my mindset changing a lot though, like down with my family, and some of the things that I just said, they looked at me twice as if to say, "You're not the same person. You're talking about kind of eating enough protein and veggies rather than kind of what sort of fatty food or takeaway that you want to eat." The night I arrived in, my sister said, "Oh, can you pick up some fish and chips on the way?" And for you guys in America and Canada, it may not fish and chips is a big thing in New Zealand and Australia, but I grew up with Friday nights was fish and chip night. So reasonably kind of big thing. And by fish and chips, we don't just mean fish and chips. It could be a burger, it could be a hot dog, it could be anything from the fish and chip shop. And there's one on kind of most corners. And I said, oh, I no, I don't think that's a good idea. I'd rather, dare I say it, get KFC, because I've worked out how much I can have within a certain kind of thing. So I've worked out that if I have 2 drumsticks and a little bottle of coleslaw and potato and gravy, that's 450 calories. So that's okay. It's still a higher dinner than I may usually have, but it's okay. Fish and chips would probably be 1,000 calories. So they noticed that straight away. And when I was talking about, oh, I'm not doing very well and that sort of thing, they're like, you're doing amazingly. I mean, the things that you're thinking now is quite different. So I was quite rapt with that. So yeah, that's my 2 weeks. I was watching videos, so I wasn't completely off the radar, but just wasn't in a position where I could really kind of make a video and with not being able to weigh. It's not that I didn't weigh. I found a couple of more scales that probably mess with my head more than anything. They were inconsistent even when you went back to the same mall to weigh, so that probably did me more harm than good. But I definitely think weighing at least once a week is definitely better, because leave it too long and 600 grams. Was that I'd actually lost and then gained and then lost again? We don't know, because that was over a 2-week period, so we just don't know. So back at work, back to kind of normal routine now, so yeah, I'll catch you next week. Bye.